Welcome to the Stopportunities podcast about turning disruption into momentum. I'm Mark Morse, and today's guest, Darren Glover, just moved from a power player at VaynerSports to the CEO of Clix Gaming. He's living the 1 to 5 zone in real time. We'll hear more about that in a minute. We're going to dive into how he recognizes signals, why obsession is a requirement, and what leaders are completely missing about the future of human behavior. Let's get into it. Darren, first of all, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morris.
Yeah, good to see you, man.
Happy to be here. Excited to be here.
Likewise. Indeed. And secondly, congratulations, the move to your very first C-suite role as CEO of Clix Gaming. That's a big shift and a big step, and a big shout out to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been as I'm sure we'll get into, kind of like I was forecasting this role 11 years ago, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it's been great. Yeah, it's been fun to step into a role that's very, very trendy right now with the times of content and media and community. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's a great place, as good as any for us to start. We've had the distinct pleasure working together. And one of the things I've loved to watch has been the shifts and career moves you've made. And when you look back at your career trajectory, what are the signals that you've learned to trust that tell you, it's time? It's time for a change, or there's disruption on the horizon. And that disruption can be something in the market or something in your soul that just says, all right, it's time to start thinking.
Yeah, I think the one that is probably the worst thing that could probably lead you to fall off a cliff is genuinely my gut. I guess I consume content at such a high scale that I feel like I'm the classic guy that's like, I was just listening to something the other day. I do that a lot. So I feel like I've got this smoothie of thoughts and opinions and perspectives in my head. I think I've always been a people person, so I can also kind of gut check what people are saying and whether they truly believe it or not. I think consuming content at a scale where you're in an algorithm or you're seeing things happen online that start to dictate your opinion to where, I mean, you could talk to it better than anybody, but the change in behavior of people when you're in the boardroom trying to pitch and sell the CMO of a company on their marketing campaign on a platform that they themselves spend all their time on, and they say that their customer isn't there. I mean, that was the classic early rise of social media, and that was my first soiree into a career, was seeing how many people were using a platform and tool, yet there was so much pushback from the business environment. So I think what I've been able to attract myself to is to make sure that my business thinking is not for what's best for the business, but it's following the consumer. And if my friends and my niece and my nephew and my teammates and my parents, if people are doing certain things and watching certain things or saying certain things, I'm taking that into the workplace with me as you're in the marketing and content world here, to be able to drive your inspiration behind what you're doing, where you're doing it, why you're doing it, what you're doing. You're not allowing propped up numbers and metrics and strategic thinking to drive that. But a lot of that is grabbing a beer with the boys and hearing, oh, what app are you using? Oh, so you and your wife both use that app. It's like, oh, like that's real insight rather than the other half of the insight, which it's very easy to clock in and clock out, workforce and personal. So I think that's where I would say, and I continue to do that, is like I'm gut checking my gut with humans, not with statistical analysis from the workforce.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear you describe that now, because my experience working with you years ago, when you joined us at Morse Code, was, I think, one of the one of the things I loved about that period was how culturally connected you were. And what you're describing, when you see behaviors and tools and platforms being used in your friends and your family and your teammates, et cetera, then that's this thread that's going consistently through culture. And yet, when you see that in the culture, it's still sometimes difficult to convince a CMO of that, and or a business of that. So you seem to have kind of found that right way of landing that.
Yeah, it's the meal of real metrics, but kind of the unscalable metric of just everybody that I know is doing this thing. Either they're just crazy, or I'm crazy for not leaning into this. So like, I mean, going from Morse code into the gaming industry, like I just like I'm constantly playing with this realm of like you sit and see people do stuff for a certain amount of time, and it kind of becomes like the huzzah moment that you're like, I feel like there's something here. Because a lot of times it's then you go to the corporate world and you start asking the corporate world about those things, and everybody has no idea what you're talking about. And you're like, wait a second. And I think
Yeah.
inherently, I mean, even starting at Morse code 10 years ago is I get more excited when that happens than when that doesn't happen. I don't like when I bring up an idea and everybody in the room already knows about it. It's kind of like
Yeah.
deflating. But when you can talk about something and everyone kind of scrunches their eyebrows up and says, "Oh, I don't think I've ever heard of that," or "Tell me more. I'm not familiar with that." I start to get energized about it. And I think I've
Yeah.
now realized 10, 11 years into my career that's where I like to sit. That's the room that I like to sit in, is the room that
Yeah.
everybody goes,
100%.
well, tell me more about that.
Yeah. I love that. We had for years a metric within the business of how many firsts can we bring a client to. So the first time they did X, the first time they entered this market, the first time they used this channel or considered this type of content, et cetera. So same kind of notion. And it's yet another thing that aligned us, I think. So I love that. So when you're in that kind of trend hunting mode, how do you differentiate between fad and trend, and how you might want to land or build around that? You said gut,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's hard to define, right? So
it's
any
the
other
worst.
tips around that?
I know. I mean, I think I like, no, I don't necessarily have tips around that. I think the way that the content world is moving right now, what's what is it, like the nutcracker, where you pull something out and it's like a big one that goes to a small one that goes
Uh,
to a smaller one. I guess it's like
um,
it's like a Chinese or Russian nutcracker.
Russian. I don't think it's Nutcracker, but I
I
know
don't want to get
exactly what you're talking
political, but no. Um, but yeah, I guess I see that as the analogy of like what is there something that's a core mover and driver of what's happening, or is it something that's just here and then? Is it something that's going to blow away very quickly, or is it
about.
something that I feel like, ooh, this is a shift that's happening right now? And I think that's the difference between I mean, in the teens before the 2020, 2010 to 2020 was the era of the app, and you've got apps, but apps were just trends. Facebook was not an app; it was a company that happened to leverage a digital application. But the digital
Yeah. Hmm.
application is $1 trillion business. So there's this difference between now when I think of where the world is headed of like, is this company or is this business or is this opportunity something that is just an app where it's fun to have and it's something that's cool and gimmicky? Or do I feel like there's a shift that's happening where this is really solving a need, it's creating a want? Is there a large community of people that are changing their behavior because of whatever that product or service or opportunity is? So,
Yeah.
and you'll never know until you know, because Instagram was just a picture app, and then it isn't just a picture app today. So like I probably would have missed out on that opportunity because I would have just seen that as just a picture filter app. But that's how I'm gut checking myself, is just trying to get to the bottom of it, of is it changing people's behavior? Do people, are they still doing what they used to do, but now they just kind of dabble in this new thing? Or are they truly changing everything that they're up to? And that's where, you know, when Twitch came around, and finding Twitch as a streaming platform was a big unlock for me as a content platform, when I
Yeah.
saw that it wasn't just content distribution, but it was a community engagement platform, which was part of
Yeah.
working at a gaming company. I started to realize that early, but I was still hesitant to really stick my foot down and be like, own my opinion about it. But I was totally right. And it was a part of what made the company after Morse Code, not as successful as what it could have been, is because we treated Twitch as content distribution and not as
Mm.
a community engagement platform. So just
Yeah.
playing video games on the internet is not what Twitch is. That's anybody can play video games on the internet, but entertaining people is what Twitch is. And having
Mm.
interactions and conversations and knowing who's there in chat and talking to chat and answering questions. This is
Yeah.
a full room of people that you're entertaining. Um, so like I knew that Twitch was a thing, but I didn't necessarily know exactly what it was, but I could see the shift. So, I
Yeah.
don't think I'm ever 100% right, and you're never 100% right when you're trying to do something new. But I feel like the Russian nutcracker, or whatever the example is like, is there something in the middle, or is it just hollow? And if I feel
Yeah.
like there's really going to be something in the middle, let me at least take the time and effort to really sink my teeth into it, because this might be that next potential big shift in behavior, rather than this just being a TikTok dance that's going to be trendy for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I love the analogy, although I think we got the name of it wrong. I'm not sure it's Russian nutcracker, but I love the fact
We'll
that
just
you
keep
opened
calling it
something.
that.
And I think that's a really good way to look at, is it a trend or is it a fad? And I think in gaming, you look at, there's an audience there, and you open the next one, and oh, the audience is a little wider, and you open the next one. Oh, there's a lot of technology companies building things around that. Oh, you open the next one, there's more channels starting to share that through a distribution. Oh, there's a community in there. So that's a really good analogy, I think.
And Web3 recently was like, I think following where the money is also, people sometimes say, is what you're supposed to do, but you can't follow where the money is, because money follows other money. And then you get to where you're the last check and you've only followed the previous money. And I mean, it's the FTX all over again, where nobody did the due diligence because the person before them did the due diligence, but the person
Yeah.
before that person did the due diligence. And so I think what's been interesting, and I'm 34 now, so I'm not old, but seeing how venture capital has also, I think, ruined some of these opportunities, is because they're trying to do the same thing I'm trying to do,
Mm.
but they're stroking massive checks to where it's not just me posting content on a platform because I want to test and try and learn it. I'm now writing a $50 million check that this has to work. This isn't just me testing and learning anymore. It has to work. And then you're
Yeah.
forcing people into something where they're not ready for it yet, because the behavior actually didn't show that they needed or wanted it yet, but you're trying to predict too early, which is the riskiest side of, venture. But then venture creates such a narrative in our world now with applications and companies and products, that it creates such a big spike in a bubble, but the behavior of the consumer is like, I don't really care about that yet. And it's such a fun
Yeah.
example because it's very relevant. Of just a couple of years ago, there were, I mean, tens of billions of dollars put into a new industry that now is worth, I mean, nothing. And
Yeah. It's crazy.
who would have ever thunk it back then is really, really interesting.
Yeah. Not many dolls in that one, unfortunately.
Yes, exactly.
So before we move to this notion of conviction that you clearly have around some industries, if there are any leaders listening who feel that signal of potential impending disruption, that something's off or shifting, what is the first thing they should do?
Is this like platform content wise? What would be the example for like what they're
Maybe the next move for either their business, for their career.
yeah.
You've as you think about your shifts from all the things that you've built and landed in. What are those signals that go back to one of those moments? And
I know. Yeah.
are there some of those things that you think, okay, so knowing what you know now, what would you have done?
Yeah, I think it's the hardest thing to do is to jump. It's really, really easy to sit at the cliff and talk about what's down there, or sit in Spain, and look at the boat that's going to go over there. It's,
Yeah.
whatever, but it's like, it's tough to actually get on the boat and go do the thing. So it's not easy. And I guess I'm not going to be the guy on a podcast that tells people that it's super easy. It's not easy at all. I think not that you want to have a plan B with whatever the disruption is of if your business is on linear television and you know that social media is going to be a thing, stop trying to build the business on linear television and figure out how you build on digital somehow. Like, if that's the analogy, I think it's internal. It's not external. It's easy to say, well, just start an Instagram channel, but it's like the internal notion of, if I don't do the thing, I'm going to fail anyways. So I might as well do the things that I need to do in order to at least give me the chance to succeed. If I genuinely feel and know and think that the way that my business is headed is going to fail regardless. I guess that's where, and not that was my situation and scenario, because I wasn't going downhill to go try to find uphill. I'm just kind of moving from place to place. So I think there's a difference between leader that sees business going wrong direction,
Yeah.
now trying to figure out how to go right direction, versus a leader that's just going in a direction and sees something interesting and smells kind of unique on the side there. Should I play with it or shouldn't I play with it? I think I would rather speak to that person, where I would
Mm-hmm.
always say, you have to test and try. And a lot of that is in your personal time. I think that's
Yeah.
where it's finding time on your own to be the consumer, or to be the human, not the businessman or businesswoman, but to be the human, to test and try things. And then once you understand it as the human, now you can put your business cap on and figure out how it can play with your business. But it's easy to say the 21-year-old is going to use new technology, but now with OpenClaw and I mean all these different AI tools and things, it's sad to see older people that don't want to play with these new toys.
Yeah.
And
100%.
it's totally ruining the direction of these businesses, because it's just this super selfish, egotistical mindset that it's not meant for them. And you saw it, we all saw it in social media, which was exciting for me to see it firsthand. Now it's the same old story again with AI. So my long-winded answer, my recommendation is, I would always tell people to do things as the human before you make the business decision, but to not, yeah, like be a human first before you start making business decisions, but take the time to be a human and test and try things.
Yeah. Yeah. I've come to call those moments Stopportunities, as you know, and the Stopportunities are those moments where you sense it. And then I've found through my career that every time I have one of those moments, if I sit in that moment with an element of stillness, again, it doesn't have to mean slowing everything down for months. It can just be, and I've built out the pause framework. So you prepare, you understand a process. So when this moment does strike, you know how to deal with it. And then that includes assessing, is this something I'm just feeling and reacting to, or is this got a little there? And then you work to understand, what is that insight that's causing this disruption or this feel that I have? And then you strategize the next step, and then you execute. And I think if you go through that phase, then you can, to use your metaphor, if you smell something sweeter over here, you can make that shift more purposefully, and have a little more confidence in that leap off that cliff.
I mean, I can't even imagine making a decision without pausing and assessing as the human, rather
Yeah,
than just making these crazy decisions for the business that people are telling you and are informing you, and you're making very shallow-minded decisions for where things should go without yourself being on the platform. And I mean, the examples that I will always use are people that are in marketing positions that are not on LinkedIn, are not on Instagram, are not on TikTok. How the beep are you making any decisions for your business? If
yeah,
you, in and of yourself, are not inherently understanding these platforms, that sounds, I mean, bizarre to me that there are people in those positions, which there are a lot of, which I still don't understand how these people are in spots like that.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And I think a lot of it's just based around fear. The fear, as you mentioned, about leaping, but understanding that you don't have to leap the full 1,000 feet down. If you plan and prepare accordingly, you'll leap to the right level, and then you can, kind of strategize from there. And I think the other piece, just around indecision, a lot of people will stay exactly where they are for fear of making the wrong decision.
Mm.
And part of making a decision is being confident in making the right decision. So if you just sit with that for a minute, and then you can, in that stillness, you can find that right move to go forward a little further than you may have just reacted to. Let's shift to your conviction around gaming, since we're talking about gaming and platforms, etc. You're putting currently all your chips on the table with gaming, and specifically platforms. We talked a little bit about this kind of maturations that's happening, certainly with Fortnite around, a lot of people see those as, or used to see them as kids games. And then as you mature, what happens to that, and why are you so convicted about gaming platform and the opportunities ahead?
Yeah, I think they've transpired from being individualized experiences that you participate in by yourself to the internet connecting into these video games, making them communal. So now you've got the ability to play with other people, no matter where they are in the world, which was a big motion that happened in the video game space. And then now we're moving into this sandbox realm, which is an always on. It doesn't have a start, a middle, and an end. You're not beating things from trying to complete missions, and then the screen comes up at the end that says congratulations, you've won, and then you put the game away unless you want to replay it. It's not a linear lifespan of playing video games. So if I take consumer behavior from age 0 to 10, and every single kid 0 to 10 is playing Minecraft or Roblox, so their behavior of what they're doing, when they're doing it, how they're doing it, is all revolving around this sandbox world of different assets and items and cosmetics and swords and fires and building. And I can experience and explore this world. I can play in this world. Then when you turn 10, you're going into your teenage years, is when you kind of transition into maybe playing Fortnite because there's more of a competitive nature to it. Then Fortnite and Epic's entire vision for the future of their video game is within UEFN, Unreal Engine Fortnite, which is their sandbox world of games and experiences that anybody can launch a video game inside of there. And it's constantly getting better and better and better for just the immersiveness of what these maps and experiences are. So if you think of from age 0 to age 21, a extremely large portion of humans are participating, playing, engaging, commercing within these platforms. That is not a hollow Russian nutcracker, as we'll keep using that as our fun example. That's not hollow. That's not a trend. That's not a fun video game that just popped up out of nowhere that had some legs to it, but it'll die. I see that being this massive shift in consumer behavior that, well, then when you turn 22, how does that impact the way that you buy things online or experience a music concert or a sporting event, watching the Super Bowl? I'm experiencing these things over here, like, and now I'm going to watch the Super Bowl and watch it this way. Like, what is the headset? What is the AR experience? What is the connected device experience? How does that happen inside of the game at the same time? And I even see now, I mean, I don't know if you've watched it, but I've clicked on it where they've got the recreation of the football game with like SpongeBob characters.
Oh, I've seen it. I've not watched it. Yeah.
But that's a big decision to be made. And that's not just like a trendy thing. Like that's a real thing that's happening. But I'm still watching that on television, on CBS, NBC, Fox. That same experience could be done inside of Roblox and Fortnite and Minecraft.
Mm.
It's just so I have such a belief in these platforms because of that,
Mm.
and being able to represent and work with a content creator now gives me the media and the community on top of it. So now I've got a business around it. But just the
Yeah.
simple consumer behavior of these platforms is what gets me really, 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 really excited about it, because it's not just a place that people go play anymore. These are worlds that have more kids playing and commercing and experiencing and meeting and being educated and entertained. There's so many functions of real life that can be explored inside of these worlds, and they're doing it for 21 years of their life. It's how's that going to impact age 21 to 40 is what gets me really, really excited about it.
Yeah. And the consumer behavior, the human behavior is super interesting as you described. How do you see the rest of the markets missing that?
I think it's because it's difficult and it's not linear. It's not a campaign that has a start and an end. Lots of
Mm.
brands will come in and have a start and an end to a campaign inside of a map, because marketing isn't meant for human behavior and nature. It's not a Elon robot yet. Like it's not a part of your daily life. The product is, but the messaging of the content isn't.
Mm.
So it's this weird affiliation between I'm a brand and I have a new product launch. So I'm going to drive and drop a campaign inside of these experiences because I know that there are lots of our potential customers inside of these worlds. It's a very start and end mindset. So I think that there's this with what Grand Theft Auto has. That's why I was late to start the podcast. Was with GTA 6 coming out, that's something that really creates a massive opportunity as well, because it's less cartoon characters and it's a little more real, but there are these RP servers, these role-playing servers that people are playing roles. You can play, you could be the baker and you work at the bakery
Mm.
inside of these worlds. You're totally playing somebody else and you're earning money and you're selling things and you live somewhere and you're buying real estate and you're making friends and you get pulled over by the police, and I happen to be the police car driver. And then when I leave the RP server, we go grab a beer and we talk about how
Yeah.
fun that was and how great. It's one big improv bit. So, but the bakery, why is that not Einstein Bagels? Why aren't you the bartender at the Buffalo Wild Wings bar inside of Grand Theft Auto? So I think there's this shift in nature of figuring out how can I just immerse myself in these experiences without having to hashtag ad brand narrative marketing my way to get there, but be okay feeling uncomfortable that I'm just a part of it. Just like the real world of I'm drinking a Fiji water bottle, but I'm not getting marketed to by Fiji right now. I just have a Fiji water bottle and I'm thirsty and I'm drinking it. How does Fiji do this inside of these video games, and at what price point are you willing to do that? And that's the nature of why I think so many people are missing it, is because it's not simple and easy to just, how much does it cost? What do I get out of it? When do I start and when do I end? It's not that it's just not that easy.
Yeah. And This is a great transition to this other insight that you shared last time we were talking about how you identified where you'd like to sit in the company's maturation, and you call it in that 1 to 5 stage. It's not really the 5+, and it's not sitting in the garage with an idea. I think what you just talked about is a good example of why you like it at that phase. But can you share a little more about that?
Yeah, I think you have these entrepreneurs that have ideas that don't exist yet, and they have a really, really fun time going from 0 to 1, and that's their energy. I think you have a lot of senior level business executives or just corporate employees that love to be a part of big, bulky companies that have lots of money, lots of funding, different offices, thousands of employees. They're still innovating, but it happens slower. It's safer. That's that 5 to 10 realm, which maybe companies only get to 7. But that 1 to 5 of when something's real, it's past just an MVP stage. It's got real traction, and all metrics say, this is not a trend. This is actually something that has something there. This is smelling really sweet. I love joining and being a part of that 1. And I think I'm now figuring out that I'm really skilled at taking that 1 to 5, because I think in order to take something from 1 to 5, you have to have an innate ability to find where the world is headed, because at 1 you can't act like you're an 8. That doesn't exist, because you need to build and scale and grow. So you have this rhythm and pace and energy about yourself, but you also don't have the comfortability of being a 5 to 10 company that just has a cushion around you.
Yeah.
I think it was a book that you even you might have recommended it to me. Crossing the Chasm. Was that you that recommended that?
Yeah, that's a classic. Yeah.
Yeah, like that has inherently been one of my favorite books of all time, which is very it's almost easy to take something from 0 to 1, because all you're really doing is just creating an MVP of something that's cool, sexy, hot, trendy now. But actually taking that from 1 to 5 is really, really difficult to actually create mainstream relevance and a customer base. And then once you get from 5 to 10, again, you start to lose me. I might not be showing up for work next week.
Yeah. So you're saying the 1 to 5 zone that you love to be in is taking something through and over the chasm.
Through and over the chasm. Correct. Yeah. I think that's really, 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 really fun. And I think it's difficult in and of itself. Not that 5 to 10 is easy, and not that 0 to 1 is easy, but I think the energy of 1 to 5 over that chasm is that it genuinely energizes me on a daily basis, because you have to understand scaling and business and structuring a company, but you also have to act like you've got a fire right on your ass.
Yeah.
Which that dichotomy to me is really fun, which 0 to 1 doesn't have that. They have nothing, and no one cares about it yet. And 5 to 10, you don't necessarily have a fire underneath your ass because you're venture backed, you're worth $1 billion, whatever the case may be. They have their own issues and problems of how to build and scale that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That 1 to 5 is leveraging the early adopter innovator mindset that, they're going to hop on just because it's cool and it's something new, but then they've proven it. So you can take those proof points and then go demonstrate to the rest of, the main markets or the main market opportunities. And that does take some rolling up the sleeves and thinking strategically. And as you said, you get a little fire in the belly and fire on the ass to get going. So cool. Love that. So let's move to this. I was just talking to Zach on our team. You remember Zach, and he says to say hi, by the way.
Hello, Zach.
We were laughing about how he grew up and his parents were saying, you shouldn't play video games because there's no future in that, right? And now look at all the momentum around this. It's not just a game; it's a platform, it's a business. It's there's real money there, etc. In leadership circles, we oftentimes talk about how do we as leaders find balance. And when we were talking about that in our pre-call a couple of weeks ago, you shared this notion about yes, but if you want to get to that elite level, you said that obsession is a necessity to make it at that level.
Yeah.
And I love that candor. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think anybody who sports is such a mature industry in our culture, and it is seen as something that is beneficial to kids, let's just call it, that if a kid is it, and it did, maybe it wasn't always that, but through the, 21st century, over the last 50 years, sports is something that is seen as beneficial for a kid to get involved with, to learn real life skills. It shows work ethic and dedication and friendship and teamwork and winning and losing. And there's all these things that sports teaches a kid. And parents, parents not only want to put their kids into sports, but they genuinely see the value of it. And then there's a career from it, where whether you want to do the actual act of playing the sport, or whether you want to get into sports management, you want to get into broadcast, you want to be a coach or a trainer. There's all of these different career choices that you can get out of this category of sports. And it's seen as very positive. The obsession side was more for the player themselves, but I think in general, if you want to be great at anything, but I think the playing of the video game and the athlete side, I think is the comparison, that because sports has such a fancy ribbon and such a great brand in culture, the obsession of me as a basketball player back in the day, wanting to spend more time in the gym to get better. My dad said, "I'm proud of you, kid. You stay in there and keep working as long as you want, and keep getting better. Darren's a hard worker," and all these positive terms. Zach, playing video games when he was a kid, lazy, maybe a little antisocial. You're just kind of wishing your life away in a basement. Why don't you go out and start meeting some people and go doing stuff? There's such a negative stigma with this act of playing video games. And not that that was Zach. I'm using, I guess, the example of you talking about Zach, in case Zach is listening here. Yeah, exactly. But it's that negative stigma, to where what I've seen slowly but surely is the shift, which constantly is just occurring daily, weekly, and monthly, is that gaming is a career opportunity for kids. So now, in order to be great at something, whether you want to be in broadcast, whether you want to be on the business side, if you want to develop games and actually be the ones that are coding the behind the scenes, is you have to be obsessed over. I was obsessed playing basketball. I did not want to leave the gym, and that was deemed as a positive trait. So obsession is such a interesting word, because if I'm obsessed with drinking alcohol, that's a bad thing. But if I'm obsessed with playing basketball, that was deemed as a really good thing. Now, obsessed with playing video games was historically deemed as a negative trait, that a kid that is obsessed with playing video games, there's something wrong with them. You got to stop doing that. And now, as the world continues to progress, I think more young parents that see video games as more than just antisocial basement activities see that there are opportunities within gaming, but the industry in and of itself has not provided enough of the, middle school, high school, college. There isn't this career path that's easily accessible and knowledgeable. So even though a parent really appreciates their kid playing video games, the industry in and of itself is not mature enough, which is the greatest opportunity for the industry to be able to create the AAU summer basketball circuit, the summer league, all these different components that make up sports and youth sports. gaming doesn't have that yet, which impedes on its ability to actually be a positive sentiment in culture because it's missing a lot of those different tools and functions. But going back to your original point, my client Clix to be one of the top 3 Fortnite players in the world. He is obsessed with playing Fortnite. And that's a good trait because he's made millions of dollars playing Fortnite.
Yeah.
Nobody can say that that obsession was a negative trait for him. And then one more thing as I continue to ramble because I think it's important. When I was in the gym obsessed with playing basketball, there were lots of kids that were in the gym playing basketball and they were just throwing the ball at the hoop. But their parents thought that they were working hard, playing basketball and trying to, but they really weren't doing anything. They were just dicking around in a gym.
Yeah.
Video games is the same way. When a kid has a thing and you're like, whoa, this kid is actually really skilled and talented at this thing called playing video games, there's an opportunity for them to leverage that obsession for the betterment of their career. Kids that just dick around and play video games in the basement, they're just playing around. But there were just as many kids dicking around in the gym or out on the soccer field or out on the football field saying that they're playing sports, but they didn't take it seriously. I used to hate those kids. They were like the most annoying kids ever. Well, it's the same thing in the video game world. It's just the brand around it is really negative, and it's really unfortunate. But I think it's progressing, just not at a rate or a pace that I think is positive because it's still really, really slow. And I think the majority of parents still see it as my kid's playing video games in the basement.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that obsessing can cause blind spots? And if so, how do you prevent those blind spots?
Yeah, I think that's either you're okay with it or you're not. I mean, even me, like I was forced to not be obsessed anymore because my knee didn't work. Like I couldn't play basketball anymore. So now I had to go do something else. But I think the more that you aren't obsessed and you try to look for blind spots, the less obsessed you are because you're getting distracted. So I think there's this balance between, but I think this, Stopportunities, I think is something that is important because I think there's also, to the point of Stopportunities, it's taking a beat to just double check with yourself that this, bull race that you're on moving in a certain direction is the right direction that you should be on. Not that you're second guessing it, but you're just level setting with yourself that you're spending all this energy doing something. Is this the right thing for me to be doing? Can I still be doing it, but can I do it better? I think it's that level of being able to take a step back, but I think I also would say that that's way easier said than done. When you're just when you're on a mission and you've got a goal and you're just going for it, it's so easy to allow other people to also force their way to stop you that you're like, nope, sorry, not stopping. I want to accomplish this thing. And every successful person will always say that. Is so many other people try to force their opinion in your path and stop you from doing your thing. So that realm of wanting to stop is so, sunken in deep inside of your soul that you're not stopping. So how do you find the balance of not stopping and justifying it because somebody told you to stop, but finding in your own way the ability to just take a step back for 30 minutes to an hour and just make sure that this is what you want to do. You're enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
That's the application of strategy, right? I mean, you have to know how to get to where you want to go. And what I love about the obsessive metaphor is, or example is, if you're obsessing on your excellence in basketball or music or gaming or science or whatever you're into, and you can start to apply that same obsessive competitiveness in the right direction, and it's applying it in the right direction where strategy and that pause can come in All right, so how can I take the hours of woodshedding in the drum studio, and how can I take that to make sure that when I launch my business, that it's going to be successful? Or the competitiveness of basketball when you're working on your crossover because you envision making some guy fall when you're going to fake right and go left, or when somebody tells you this is a terrible time to start a business, and then you want to cross them over metaphorically to demonstrate, oh yeah, I'll show you what time it is, right? So I love
Well,
that,
and
the notion of that.
yeah, and I mean, we only hear about the success stories of people like that, but there are more failure stories. So
Yeah,
it's,
exactly.
but yeah, I mean, I feel like success is in those extremes. So
Yeah,
if you're just kind of living in the middle and you're fearful of making a decision left or a decision right, I mean, yeah, you're never going to figure out these opportunities. You're never going to be obsessed over everything because you're just kind of living in the middle. But I think in order for you to make those decisions, it's not being fearful. And it's
yeah,
once again easier said than done. I didn't just wake up one day and I just changed my job. Like it took some time. But I think it's also part of the community of people that you have around you and folks that you trust and people that give you honest opinions about certain things. And
yeah,
not to say this is in an egotistical way, but I think the majority of people, and I would say like the people that would listen to a podcast like this, is like the worst thing that can happen is that it doesn't work out and you have to kind of go find another job. And
yeah.
not to say that finding a job is easy, but that's the worst thing. The worst thing that can happen is that you have to go find another job. But the best thing that can happen is, you know,
Yeah.
whatever your excitement is of that opportunity, playing those odds to me is it's I mean with my move from VaynerSports um to Clix Gaming was like it was it was more of a risk to stay at VaynerSports than it was to go join Clix Gaming. That's what
Mm,
happened in my head, and the second that that
yeah.
happened in my head, that made the decision so much easier because I felt like
Yeah.
I was going to be more disappointed if I didn't end up taking this opportunity than if I take the opportunity and it ends up not working.
That is a fabulous way of describing that opportunity moment, right? Where
Yeah,
it cost me more staying right where I am than it does to figure out how to get to where I think I should go.
yeah.
Love that. Spot on. That's cool. Um, did you have an official pause during that, or how did you recognize that? Were there moments where you're like, okay,
Yeah, I did a lot of listening to, I mean, just a lot of those types of podcasts that just talk about where the world is headed.
yeah,
And I listen to them anyways, but I just listen to them with a different lens of I've never, me being at VaynerSports for 6 years, like that was a long time, especially in an agency. Like that was quite a long
yeah,
time to be at a single spot. And I left not because I was disgruntled. I genuinely left as a very happy employee, but just to the point of being at a place from 0 to 1, 1 to 5, 5 to 10. Not that our gaming division at VaynerSports was a 5 to 10 type company, but I guess metaphorically, the fact that I was there for 6 years, it kind of felt like I was becoming the 5 to 10,
yeah,
and just the industry that talent agents are in and marketing agencies, unless you're taking outside funding, it's tough to scale. So it's not like we were bringing on a $20 million check and now we were just going to ramp up. It was just like a slow growth process that I really liked doing. But it was that realm of I needed a new challenge is ultimately
mm,
what it came down to. And it was that was the pause that I had, which was waking up every single day. What am I challenged with? And then what am I accomplishing? And I just
yeah,
felt like what I was challenged with and what I was accomplishing was not scratching the itch as what it used to do. But I still liked it because I'm good at it. Like there's nothing wrong with it. I just felt like it just didn't hit the way that it used to hit. And it
yeah,
wasn't a negative feeling. It was just let me take a sec and pause and just think back on what I used to do, what I am currently doing, and then thinking about what the next year or two was going to look like in this certain role. And I felt
Yeah.
like that itch was going to become even harder to scratch in the current path that I was headed on. So it's like taking a step, realizing that, and then seeing this other opportunity with my client at with Clix to build a business around a content creator. That was the challenge. That was like, ooh, nice. 0 to
Yeah.
1 accomplished. 1 to
Yeah.
5, that chasm is grueling, and it's a fire-breathing dragon, and it's disgusting over this chasm, and we got to get over it. That excited me a lot to see that
Yeah.
challenge. Also, talking to people who crossed the chasm, I think also helped. Of speaking
Yeah.
with the folks of creator businesses and hearing them talk about, oh yeah, Jimmy, Mr. Beast, used to just do these videos and now he became this. The Sidemen used to do this, and Mark Rober used to do that. And talking to the business executives around those creators, being the sponge and hearing them on what excited them about starting, what the challenges were, I just started to get like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that challenge. I think I would like to jump into that ring and try to punch my way out of those challenges.
Yeah, you have such a great understanding of what next means for you, or what I'm hungry for more means to you. And it's that moment of just sitting with it for a second. In music, it's called the fermata, right? We talk about this pause. The orchestra's holding a note, or the band is sitting in silence until delivering the sense of suspense to what's coming next. And this hunger for what you were looking for. Other people, it may not be making this leap. It might be staying at the company, but trying to push to go from here to here. That is big change for them. But for others, it's, I really need to shift and do something a little bigger. That's how it was when I sold the business. I also was wrestling with, God, I'm feeling like I need more, and started to sit with it and define what that meant. And then that was the trigger to look for a sale. So it's no secret you're a high activity guy, and like to be in it to win it. And how do you pause, or where do you find that stillness, or what does stillness mean to you as maybe it's non-existent in a traditional sense of, I don't sit still, but where do you find a little bit of that? You can even think of it in terms of what you described as inhaling and exhaling.
Yeah, we were talking about it in our pre-call. Like, I think that's one of the things that I don't do a good job of, to be transparent, which you have to be. Like, I don't do a good job in sitting still. I don't take a lot of moments to myself. I'm constantly on. I'm constantly thinking. I don't sleep well because of it. I feel like I have ideas at 2 a.m. when I go to the bathroom that I have to like write down, which then I don't go back to sleep. Like, that's just how my brain is. Like, I want to listen to more podcasts. I always want to have things going on. So that's definitely, I would say, a skill that I haven't learned yet, for better or for worse. But I think finding moments that I use that analogy of inhaling and exhaling is like finding moments to be able to get your thoughts out is really helpful for someone like me, which is really my pause or my stillness. Is I have so much stuff going on in my head. I see that analogy as you're inflating a balloon at that point, and not having the ability to get those ideas out in a way, whether that's in your business, whether that's in your side hustle, whether that's late at night on going for a walk, whatever the case may be. It's I've used AI as a tool that's been really helpful, as just being able to get thoughts out and hear someone's perspective that's unemotional, who's awake, that I don't feel like I'm bothering them in any way, shape, or form. But I think my stillness is that because I've got so much, it's easy for someone like me to become a balloon, but being able to be more like a lung, where I'm inhaling with lots of different ideas, but then I'm able to exhale and get those ideas out, to then inhale and get new ideas again, then creates, I think, more of a healthy lifestyle for a brain and a person like me, rather than what could be a really unhealthy lifestyle when you're just thinking and moving and thinking and moving and thinking and moving, and you're not able to refresh those thoughts with anything new or
Yeah.
take the old out and replace with the new. That's where I think I find my stillness is. I go for, and I'll send you the screenshots for the show notes just to prove it. I go for a 4 to 5 mile walk just about every morning, Monday through Friday, in and around Scottsdale here. And that's that world of I start with a podcast, then I move into listening to kind of like house electronic music. And then that moves into me talking to ChatGPT and my different projects around content, the operation, brand, PR, and I'm just talking and I'm just getting my thoughts out. And it's
Yeah.
really, really helpful to I feel still. Like that is a very still moment for me, where 5 miles is kind of a long walk, is what it sounds like. But it goes by so fast that I'm almost like disappointed when I turn the corner and I know my apartment is right there and I got to get
Yeah.
back to work. But it's really, really helpful. So I think that's how I would describe my stillness with my busy brain that I have.
Yeah, it's interesting because as you were sharing this, I think in like visual terms and things kind of land every once in a while. And while you were sharing that, this image of Artemis in the space event that's just happening now came to mind. It was almost like it feels like you spent a lot of time putting all the ship spacecraft parts and mechanics together to get to the moon. And on the journey, you're consuming more content and you're understanding why you're going to get there. And once you're there, imagine the entire craft just falls apart. And it's now a pile of stuff you have to put back together again. But you've gathered more information. And now that you're on the moon, you're gathering more information there to rebuild it to get to where you're going to go next. That's kind of what I envision happening when you're
Yeah,
listening to all that stuff.
100%. I mean, the stuff that I listened to 4 years ago isn't the same stuff that I listened to like. I'm constantly working out my brain and my opinions and my feelings and of up and down and left and right. Because I mean, yeah, I agree with that. To the point of going somewhere and then not feeling you feel stuck, but you're constantly wanting to learn more, but not forgetting where you're headed, even though you're learning more. Because it's also a busy brain, you can get very distracted, which is also something that I admit to myself is I can get very distracted because I'm so
Yeah.
interested in so many things. And that's the pros and cons of like, well, take me for who I am. But I get very distracted as well because I'm always interested in new things and things fascinate me. And I'm genuinely a curious person. And somebody who's a leader, who's a genuinely curious person, can sometimes be like, where are we? We're all over the place right now. And I've had to
Yeah.
train myself that's why it's so helpful in my own time. I can do that because I get it. My brain gets what I'm doing. I got a
Yeah.
board and I'm talking to a robot. Like I, that makes sense for me, but I've now trained myself to not bring my personal curiosity to my status calls all the time, but I have
Mm.
more of an agenda for the business world, but I'm able to get that exhale and inhale out in my own personal time and my own stillness because I'm all over the place and I'm curious and I'm learning about all this other stuff. But then as soon as
Yeah.
I get one of those things that I've been thinking about for 2, 3 weeks, now when it starts to become not just like a cool thing that I'm thinking about, now it really becomes something that I can start to see connect into the business world. Now it's way easier for me to bring that into my day to day and it doesn't feel sporadic in nature
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's pros and cons. You always like an idea guy, but when you're thinking about the next idea before you finish your previous idea, that can become also overbearing and not helpful.
Yeah. When you get into ops mode, the last thing you need is another idea. I need
It's
to
like,
get this over the goal line, right? So,
yeah,
yeah.
stop giving me ideas.
How are you thinking about AI?
I
from a
see
business
AI.
perspective, from whatever?
Yeah, I see AI as even just what I told you in my personal life. Like I use it as an unemotional backboard. I mean, just being able to toss thoughts and ideas at it, not thinking that it's. I don't use AI, and I hope people don't use it, and people that are listening to it do not use AI to come up with the next best thing. I don't think that's the best way to use it. I think AI is great to be able to analyze and strategize and be able to have conversations with something that simply is just bouncing things back and forth with you. That's how I use it on a day-to-day basis. And then I have to come up with my own thoughts. So it's not coming up with my thoughts, but I'm brain dumping. And that's been very helpful for a brain like mine who has this, people that are listening are like, this guy's just rambling. But that's my brain sometimes, is I feel like I sometimes think three-dimensionally. And I'm like trying to put this thing together. So I'm going here, then I'm going here, but then I'm back down here, but then I'm back over here, but then I got this new spot. But everything all connects. And in my brain, I see the vision. It's totally here. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at you on the other side of the call, and it's like, you don't see that? You don't see what I just created with my
Yeah.
words? But that's how
Mm-hmm.
my brain operates. And it's been difficult for my type of brain to be able to take that and put it into a more linear fashion and form. So being
Yeah.
able to take a function and a tool like that to do what I just did and then have it just be like, oh, yeah, here you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're like, oh, thank you. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not that ChatGPT gave me the idea, but it helped me formalize my thoughts into a much more linear fashion so that somebody else would understand it. That's
Mm-hmm.
how I've been
Yeah.
leveraging it a lot over the last 2 years, and it has been extremely helpful through that lens. The other lens from a content realm is just pure efficiencies to the point of not doing the work for you, but finding those very manual labored tasks, and AI can just do them for you. Why wouldn't you do that? A big thing to us is like vision boards and storyboards. Like those things that would take a week to 2 weeks to create, we're doing in 2 hours.
Yeah.
That
Exactly.
efficiency for output is unheard of. And I
Yeah.
mean, our storyboards used to be stick figures with, you know, clip art, and it just is
Yeah.
so. Or even now, like being able to see, we're shooting a commercial, a thing called Use Code Clix, and we're doing a spin-off of Beyblades, and this vision idea board of showing what this video is going to be, even being able to show the exact emotion on someone's face. And I mean, I can really see the content come to life. And that's been really, really, really helpful. So it's not
Yeah.
doing the content for me, but it's helping create the cushion around my idea that somebody
Mm-hmm.
starts to actually feel and see it, as opposed to the original way of how we used to do it, which either takes a lot of time to get to that product, or it's the super condensed stick figure oriented clip art Google image pull thing that just looks sloppy. But it was either this or that. And for us, with the pace and in general in this industry, the output that we need, we can't take 2, 3 weeks on a storyboard. We got to take 2, 3 days. Like I can't take
Yeah.
2, 3 weeks to do that. So for me, it's finding those super simple efficiencies that simply just take man hours to do, but is not the final product. It's up until shooting the final product. And then personal life is leveraging it to categorize and strategize my thoughts about all the things that I'm thinking about in my life to give me that linear thinking model to help myself and then to help whoever I'm trying to create this thought around be able to understand what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you find, do you envision building the business on AI as, finding a a smaller team of people that do a lot more with AI, or are you still looking in the direction of specialists or generalists? How do you think about all that as you consider rolling out the business?
Yeah, I haven't gotten to the belief of making the final product being made by AI. I haven't gotten there yet. I don't think that's a thing. I think that's more of a sales pitch for the company. That if I was the
Mm,
SaaS tool salesman, I would sell that as the vision of where we're headed. But I don't see that to the point of being the trend. Like, look at Sora. Sora went out of business.
yeah,
That, as we go back to a point that we talked about earlier, that was a trend. Like I never thought that that was going to work. Genuinely didn't. And we had some sponsorship deals with Sora that we ended up not taking because I didn't see that vision. I didn't see the behavior of humans were not consuming that content at a scale and at a desire and a demand to where a tool to be able to create that content was worth billions of dollars. I didn't
yeah,
see that. Will there be that genre of content? I think, but it's just a genre of content. There's always been weird, goofy content on the internet or in magazines or whatever it is like that. But I don't see there being this competition between, oh man, AI clicks is going to take over real clicks, or on Clix's channel, we're going to start using AI to generate new pieces of content. I don't see that happening. I could see there being uh, tools to help us get to the final step of the output. But I
yeah,
still think that there needs to be, in a consumer platform, a human that's actually the one that kind of makes some type of final decision, as long as that's what your goal is. If you're just a faceless person on the internet, that's different. But if you're a brand or a person that has a face and a name and a narrative, and like you're trying to build something and you can't just sporadically machine gun content on the internet, you you want a human to kind of give the final say or go ahead as well. So yeah, I'm not building Clix Gaming on AI, but I'm finding how AI can help us get there faster. But I'm not a
yeah,
believer yet in the tools that it's going to take over or compete with the product that we're releasing into the environment, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is an obsession right now. Speaking of obsessions, right? And I think people are trying to figure all of that out. And there's as many gamers in the world, there are AI strategies and points of view. So it's interesting to hear. And I'll be curious where we roll with that.
But also one of those things to the point here of like, if you aren't playing and messing around with it,
Yeah.
that to me is the thing that I would just implore everybody to do is even if you don't think that it's there, even though I don't think that it's there yet, I'm also not naive enough to be not using it.
Yeah.
I'm still using it and I'm trying to figure it out so that I can form my thoughts and opinions personally to then figure out how it can get implemented into the business. But I also
Yeah.
think it was Arizona Tech Week last week, and I went to this AI thing, um, private event, some really smart people talking there, and I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he works with some very large Fortune 200 companies on AI strategy. And afterwards, I was talking to him, and more people left, and we kind of got the private area to just kind of like jam without there being a big crowd and audience. And it was really interesting to hear his perspective that there's kind of like a little bit of a mini bubble inside of AI, inside of companies, because people are trying to invest in a tool so early, but they're spending so much money expecting and thinking that these tools are going to do more than what they can today, or that the consumer on the like they're not thinking about the consumer on the opposite end of that tool. They're forgetting a lot of that. And it's something that's not, you're not just licensing it to something else. You're integrating this technology into the bones of your business. So if you
Yeah.
screw up, this is a big deal. This isn't just, oh, we'll just cut our contract and go elsewhere, you are really, whatever your example was of like, I mean, you are gutting your company with new technology before you genuinely know or believe of what it's going to do today, what it's going to do tomorrow, how your consumers are going to feel using that technology, where their life is and data is going to be. There's a lot of questions that aren't answered simply because of time. We haven't had
Yeah.
enough time with the product. That's okay. But how do you make the early investment to bet on the come that it's going to work without becoming a laggard and being too late? I think we're getting to this point, and it's crazy for someone like me to say that, but I think we're moving too fast with some of these tools. Way
Yeah.
too fast.
Yeah.
To the point of thinking three-dimensionally. There's so much stuff that we have to think about with new technology these days because we're going through an entire new shelf of technology. We're not just making Instagram better. This is
Yeah.
a completely new shift. How are you investing $1 trillion into this new tech? I don't get it. I
Yeah.
genuinely don't. So I think a lot from the business landscape of people listening, I wouldn't move too fast, too soon, without, I mean, really having a genuine belief that this is the right decision, because moving too fast can be just as, even, I mean, more times will be just as negative as being too slow. Moving too slow isn't a bad thing. And
Yeah.
that's okay with this new technology. I would recommend people move slower with AI than what I feel like they're being forced to right now based on just the Twitter zeitgeist
Yeah.
of AI right now.
Yeah. I feel like it's almost like the jazz saxophone solo. And if you listen to a sax solo that goes on too long and that sax player does not inject space between the notes, it's just blee, 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 nonstop for 10 minutes, you're going to tune out or your brain's going to melt within 5 minutes of that, right? So you need to have that space, and those moments of silence and stillness are where you can sit with all that learning for a minute and understand what's the next note I want to play based on what else is happening in the band, or in the business analogy, what else is happening in the market. And I feel like with AI, the temptation is to just listen to all these sax solos going nonstop, nonstop, nonstop. And you have to sit with, our brains can't handle that. Literally, physically, we need that moment to sit and just shut it off for a second and consume it, and then make your next move matter a little more. So it's super interesting. I agree with that.
I mean, this whole narrative is going to be needed for AI
Yeah.
because, to just the point, I mean, this is the craziest technology ever recorded with the human race. And
Yeah.
people are moving really, really fast and making really big decisions without taking a second to just pause and figure
Yeah.
out whether or not this is the right way for us to go. Because it's really noisy, to your point. It's a very loud market right now. And
Yeah.
people are feeling like they're forced to do it. And I think that's the
Exactly.
worst feeling to have in the business landscape, is you feel like I mean, in life in general, I guess, is feeling like I'm like, oh man, I guess I should do this. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, no. As soon as you start feeling that way, you really got to take a step back.
Yeah. AI's strength is moving at the speed of whatever. And
Right.
our strength is consuming things, inhaling and exhaling, right? Inhale all this information and then just sit for a minute with it and then make the next thought. And we're trying to put ourselves into that AI speed mode. So yeah, I think you're right. There's more conversations to be had around this for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as advertised, my man, this has been fabulous. I really appreciate your time. You are a perfect example of a leader who aligns their shifts and steps with conviction, not just speed. So thank you so much for your time and sharing your talents with us today.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. This has been it's been fun. Crazy to think it's been how many years
I know it.
since walking the halls of the code.
Yep. Yep. Well, if this story and Darren's message resonated with you, and specifically with someone who's navigating their own 1 to 5 moment right now, share it. And thank you for listening. I'm Mark Morse and Darren Glover. Thanks again for joining us, man.
Thanks, guys.